Egos are brittle, things weaker than the hands that wield them they fracture. With the lightest strike crumble beneath. Even the weight of a minor test when faced with your fire, your unyielding defiance, their foundation. Split, it wasn't your presence alone that broke them. It was your refusal to bow, to bend, to shrink into the image they demanded. That kind of defiance unsettles the frail strength held steady in the face of their schemes, left them clutching only their shattered pride. Pride thrives on power, on possession, and your very being stripped them of both. Every move you made, every word you withheld shook the fragile order they fought so desperately to protect. Their ego survived on being the largest shadow in the hall, the sharpest noise, the heaviest weight. But your calm, unbreakable strength was a storm that tore apart illusions, exposing their tricks as nothing more than smoke, mirrors, and lies. You refused their contest, and that refusal was your greatest advantage. The strongest never need to shout, your silence carved deeper than their harshest taunts. It wasn't only what you did, but what you refused to do. You never stepped into their hollow wars, never trembled when they pressed your limits. That restraint, that unyielding choice to remain above them was infuriating. They lived off your reaction to feed their ego, but you gave them emptiness, and with that emptiness, their false power began to decay. Your force was never brute strength, but an unbroken knowing of yourself. They longed for you to crave them, to beg for their validation, but you never did. Independence is a blade that cuts deeper than any wound, and your solitude ripped through the mask they had so carefully assembled. They mocked your power only to mask the terror of it, for to confess it existed was to admit their own insignificance. The very core of their ego needed your obedience, and when you withheld it, their whole reality began to fall. Envy crept in like dusk, silent yet devouring. They could not command what they could not reduce, could not accept what they could not bend. Your strength revealed the crack in their armor, the weakness in their structure. It made them face the walls of their limitations. They tried to destroy you, not from hatred of you, but hatred of the reflection of themselves that you so effortlessly unveiled. Your strength was never just a threat, it was a mirror, and the reflection in it terrified them. Control is the bloodline of the ego, and you drained it from them. You didn't. You refused to fight on their terms. You didn't bend to their traps. That rejection of their rules was a declaration of war, a rebellion they never expected nor prepared for. They sought to strip your power with words, with actions, with plots, but none of it landed. Each strike only revealed your unyielding core, a fact that was a humiliation they couldn't endure. Their ego fractured under the constant reminder that you stood unbroken to them. Strength was control, domination through fear, but yours was different. It didn't feed on others to rise higher. It came from within, a flame born of survival, of certainty of knowing who you are and never shrinking from it. That strength is rare, and the rare is often feared. They named it pride, rebellion, stubbornness, but in silence they recognized the truth. Your power was a treasure they would never hold, and that truth became their undoing. Your rise was a torment, a punishment they couldn't outrun. Every forward step, every milestone, every unbent moment before their attacks became another wound in their ego. Their pride couldn't face the fact that you stood where they wanted you, fallen, and as your light grew, their envy turned to poison. Their poison to despair. They couldn't speak it, but your strength lived like a ghost in their shadow, a mirror of weakness they couldn't shatter. You were the storm they never foresaw, the force they couldn't conquer. They longed to destroy you, but your power was no fragile shield. It was your essence, your very being, and now they stand drowning in the wreckage of their pride. Each hollow word, each bitter glance, a confession of their loss. You didn't just endure their onslaught, you soared, and in soaring you burned their ego to dust. Thieves walk this world, not just those who steal silver or crowns, but those who rob pride, who twist triumphs into shame. They try to dim your victories, to paint your success as chance to rewrite the story of your rise, so they might stand taller. But the truest thief is not the one outside, it's the voice within, the whisper that sows doubt, that gnaws at the belief that you earned your battle won, gains that plants a venomous lie that you are somehow not enough. If unchecked, that voice can do their work better than any rival could ever. Hope to success makes you a target for the weak who refuse to build their own, so they claw at the towers others have Forged, they will scrape at your victories. They'll try to reduce your accomplishments, dismiss them as trivial, as if lowering you will somehow raise them higher, but nothing can erase what you refuse to surrender. Your victories, no matter how small, are monuments to your endurance, your fire. Your unshakable will, they belong to you alone, forged in sacrifice, earned with your sweat and your pain. Defend them as fiercely as you'd defend your very breath, for they are woven into your existence. Society has a habit of twisting triumph into a burden, demanding apologies for success, humility. They disguise it as though shrinking yourself is virtue, when in truth it's just a cage built to contain those who dare to rise. But shrinking serves no soul, least of all your own. Your victories are not luck, not charity. They are the product of grit, the unyielding choice not to break when everything pressed down, the endless refusal to surrender what was called impossible to deny. That is to spit on every trial endured, every wall you tore down. The inner saboteur, the one that doubts, whispers, feeds on these external jeers. Each time they belittle your achievements, that voice grows sharper, more convincing. It suggests they are right, that maybe chance carried you, that maybe you don't deserve the heights you bled for. But chance doesn't carve empires, chance doesn't outlast dark nights, brutal sacrifices, ruthless judgment. Only raw strength does that, and your strength, your triumphs are undeniable unless you permit them to be stripped. To safeguard your achievements, you must guard your mind, the beliefs you hold, the narratives you repeat dictate how you perceive your victories. If you let doubt take root, if you allow their poison to seep in, you risk surrendering everything you fought to create. The world will always seek to pull you down, that's inevitable, but the true battlefield lies inside. The real war is silencing the voice that conspires to rob you of what is already yours. Your triumphs are not just markers, they are weapons, sharp and unyielding. Each one proves the wars you endured and conquered, the moments when quitting called louder but victory tasted far sweeter. They will attempt to blunt your edge, to soften the shine of your accomplishments, to make them appear less dangerous. But a dulled weapon is worthless, and your triumphs are not meant to be muted or hidden. Let them blaze, let them cut, let them carve reminders into the world of who you are and what you've claimed. There is unmatched power in never apologizing for your success. Those who mock what you've built are the ones who built nothing. Their jealousy, their rot is not your weight to bear. Let them sneer, let them dismiss. Their venom carries no power unless you choose to bow before their mockery. Every insult is a confession of your power. Your triumphs scream that you dared, that you conquered where others collapsed, and no hand can strip that away unless you surrender it yourself. Guarding your victories is not vanity, it is survival itself. The world is crowded with those who will twist your legacy, rewrite your tale until it suits their design. But your story is not theirs to claim. Your milestones are not up for dispute, not open to the distortions of others. Protect them, honor them, let them be the bedrock on which greater empires rise. And when thieves come to steal, remind them and yourself these trophies were earned in fire, not handed freely. They are yours forever. When ego is cut away, what remains is truth. Ego, the deceiver, paints illusions, casting shadows and calling them solid. It hides in victories, cloaks itself as pride, and lies that power is domination, not resilience. But ego is not strength, it is brittle glass shattering beneath weight. Strip it away and you face the bare, unyielding core of your being that terrifies the masses, but not you. You've seen the depths, and you've accepted them. The self beneath ego is unbreakable, not because of masks, but because those masks are gone. Ego blinds, twists, it sells the lie that worth comes from bending others, from applause of the crowd. But true power burns inside, it needs no witness. Those chained to ego cling to the world to prop their hollow shells, and when that world fails, as it always will, they collapse empty. Removing ego is defiance, a rebellion against the outer world's grip. It strips you raw yet renders you untouchable. What remains once ego is destroyed is more fearsome than ego itself. Ego thrives on fear, on obsession with control, but stripped of it, you are free to stand bare before yourself, free to rise without without applause. Those who jeered, those who clawed at you, leaned on ego for survival. Their armor was pride when it shattered. They were left broken. You, however, remained, unyielding, unfettered by anything but will. Without ego, your strength is pure force. Ego could never forge. It's not loud or boastful, not the noise that demands attention, but the still power that commands respect. They saw it and mistook it for arrogance, because they cannot imagine certainty without ego. But your certainty was never about them. It was always about knowing yourself. Their jealousy, their desperate efforts to break you were born from their own fragile selves. They never grasped that what they mocked was never ego, it was truth. Ego is the disguise most people cling to hide their fears. Its armor, not strength, and it crumbles the instant it's tested. When people tried to confront you, they hoped to find emptiness beneath your resolve, but there was no emptiness, no falsehood to strip away. What they uncovered was whole, solid, unyielding. They raged because your freedom from ego unmasked their own. Without ego, there is no curtain, no trick, only the undeniable presence of who you are. Those who lean on ego to shape themselves always collapse when it betrays them. Ego demands endless feeding, flattery, control, recognition, and when starved it rots. People chained to it live in a loop of hunger and never feeling full. Your strength, born of truth, required no such supply. While others drowned in the weight of their own doubts, you climbed untouched. The loss of ego was not your defeat, it was your deliverance. Without ego comes vision. You witness reality as it is, not as your vanity insists it should be. That vision is a blade, one that tears through the illusions others weave around them. Those who mocked you hid beneath their egos, but their attacks on you only exposed their hollowness. They leaned on ego as a crutch, but when faced with someone who walked without it, they collapsed. Your strength became a mirror, reflecting their fragility back upon them. Ego breeds conflict, it twists allies into foes and spreads jealousy where there should be respect. By removing you, shattered their attempts to see doubt within you. They couldn't grasp your power, couldn't endure the truth that you could live without hunger for validation. And as their egos collapsed, so too did their idea of power. You revealed that true strength isn't control, it is truth. It is the refusal to bow or break for the sake of acceptance. Ego and love can never share ground. Ego seeks dominion while love requires surrender. The two cannot breathe together, for their desires are forever opposed. Ego erects walls, castles of vanity and self-defense, while love asks for softness, a laying down of those barriers. Love asks for union. Ego feasts on division. Those who cling to ego can never taste love. Their hearts bound in chains of pride, too heavy to open wide, and still they pretend, repeating words, mimicking gestures without touching the soul. Their illusion of love is empty, a shadow of conquest, not of bond. Where ego thrives, love dies. Ego murmurs of victory, of control, of bending the world to its command. Love instead is a steady, quiet flame that blossoms only when ego is absent. Ego craves to consume, love longs to be offered. Ego hunts for applause while love stands complete. Without it, those enslaved by ego can never embrace love, for love demands what ego detests most, humility. And so their bonds collapse into arenas, not havens, poisoned by the chains they refuse to release. Ego's fatal flaw is its hunger to rule. It must dominate the stage, claim every I be the constant flame, while love flourishes in stillness. In the sacred moments when ego has no voice but silence is death to ego, for fears vanishing. Without noise, ego must always perform, always demand witness, and in doing so it chokes the breath of true connection. Love withers beneath ego's endless thirst for praise. The enslaved will never taste the purity of love, stripped of selfish need. To love beyond ego is to give without counting, to share without bargaining for. Ego thrives on exchange, it never gives. Without hunger, it cannot grasp love as a gift, for ego lives only as the sun of its own orbit. When love appears, ego trembles. It shrinks, rages, desperate to survive, ruining what could have been sacred just to cling to its fading illusion of supremacy. Ego trembles at love, for love is untamed, beyond chains and death to ego's commands. Love asks only surrender, trust, the release of control. Ego resists. To yield is to admit fragility, to strip away its false crown so those who bow to ego end in solitude, their unions empty, their words hollow. They speak of love but only mimic its shell, their gestures cold. Reflections, ego distorts love into war, it twists devotion into schemes of power, it turns trust into a battlefield where love seeks to merge ego, schemes to sever, to use intimacy as a weapon for its throne. Those who submit to ego reduce love to a trade, a coin to hoard, spend or deny, and in so doing they kill its very essence, its fire to lift, to mend, to forge ties ego can never hold. The absence of ego is the crown of love, for then it shines pure, freed from chains of pride or control. It exists untouched, whole in itself, beyond conditions, released from all weight of expectation. But those who cling to ego, they will never taste such love. They will chase control, hunger for power, and call it love, yet their hearts stay hollow. Love asks for surrender, ego refuses to give, and so it escapes those who crave it most. Ego and love are eternal adversaries, only one can remain. Those who choose love must bury their ego, let it die so that something greater may rise in its place, but most tremble at release. Too enchanted by illusions, their ego projects, they cling to it, clutching it like salvation, even as it drags them under, and in holding on they forfeit the very thing that could save them. Love requires loss while ego demands protection, the two cannot breathe in the same space. Vanity is a master of masks, draping itself in righteousness, in causes so grand none dare question the purpose beneath them. The most prideful souls are seldom those who shout their worth, they are the ones who whisper, who cloak their arrogance in the dialect of care and kindness. They build mirages, facades of virtue and charity, not from desire to heal the world, but from their thirst to guard themselves from doubt. Beneath their benevolent veils festers something rancid, a hunger not for upliftment but for power, for reverence, for dominance, wrapped in humility. When ego stains generosity, it becomes a blade, it is wielded to silence dissent, to build shrines not for mankind's betterment, but to the egoist's own shadowed reflection. Gestures of supposed kindness are flashed like fireworks, their brilliance designed to blind instead of reveal. Those who dare unmask the hollowness of such gestures are branded skeptics, enemies of hope. The egoist plays the art with skill, turning virtue into both shield and sword alike. They seek not to serve, but to reign, not to raise, but to subdue. The foulest truths often hide beneath the fairest lies.